Hey May, how are you?
I'm doing well, Simon. How are you?
Good as always. So
Excellent.
today we're talking about ESG, I believe.
Absolutely. We're moving on from the latest video that we recorded, which focused specifically on the G of ESG, a topic
Okay.
that's more and more being talked about in the press around sustainable investing.
Yeah,
And again, all we're trying to do, Simon, is trying to get rid of some of the noise that we see out there around this topic and share with our viewers some of the signal that you and I are researching and are talking about and slowly bringing into our ESG portfolios here at Holland Hahn Wills. We think it might be of interest to viewers that are already clients of ours and maybe viewers that are looking at this ESG business on their own.
indeed. So let's just catch up with where we were last time, which was this slide, which just kind of summarizes what is meant by ESG, because I think part of the issue with ethical investing, green investing, SRI, ESG, is that there are so many different phrases and bits of jargon used that many people just end up confused. So part of what we're trying to do today is to explain what we mean by ESG and where it stands overall in terms of portfolios. And just as a reminder, last time we talked very much about the G element of it. So how a company, how the leadership, how the executive pay, how the operations and shareholder rights are used. And today we're very much concentrating on the E and the S.
Indeed, absolutely. And, just to remind people what ESG stand for, so you can see that on the screen, environmental, social, and governance issues. This is a way for professional investors and retail investors, of course, to understand how a company measures on a scale of E, S, and G factors over and above what they already publicly state to us through their annual reports and their balance sheet and everything else, which you would have expected to know through traditional investment fundamental analysis.
Absolutely. Now, the PowerPoint seemed to have a mind of its own there and flick it forward automatically. But let's now go through, because this slide here it's really just designed to put into context where ESG stands. Because in terms of bookending, far on the left-hand side, we have well, you could argue even to the left of our portfolios, there is the normal market or normal investments. Now, as we stated last time, HHW portfolios already adhere to the Gs. Now, I don't know what's going on because my computer seems to be changing these slides automatically, but I'll stick with it for the time being. So we'll go back to this one. And on the other extreme is charity, which is straightforward charitable giving. So to the left-hand side, we're mainly concerned with financial returns. And to the right-hand side, it's very much concentrating on the social and environmental returns.
Absolutely. And, we already work with our clients in understanding their wants and their desires on both of these ends, right? To the financial returns end of things, well, our portfolios are there to be able to help our clients have the life they want to have in retirement. In other words, to be able to deliver their financial plan to them on an ongoing basis. So that is very much financial return driven, but for us, it really is there to power the financial plan, which sits above the investment strategy anyway. And in fact, at least I think we all find, Simon, in working with our clients, and I think the population as a whole, this is it's a charitable bunch. I mean, we see this internally when we have our own internal projects to support local community projects here in Kingston upon Thames. We just see our clients rally around it and donate money. But gosh, when we look on social media and see our clients doing projects locally, projects internationally, I mean, look, I think as a whole, the country has this charitable vein, and it won't be hard for our viewers just to look introspectively and see that they probably already have some regular charity giving happening in their own lives. And that complements somewhat their feeling about doing good by how they've done well in life. But now there's also a chance to do that with their investable funds as well.
Indeed, now just looking at the slide that I've largely put together, it does look as if there's some rather poor spacing going on here, but it's worth pointing out, he said rather defensively, that this was done rather intentionally, because what we're trying to put over here is that the ESG portfolios are actually pretty darn close to our main portfolios. But just to put this in some sort of context, SRI investments, which is the box right in the middle, these, or the origin of these, was very much based upon religious groups, Quakerism, groups that wanted to invest, wanted a return, but there were definitely sort of no-go areas, guns and alcohol, as for instance, tobacco. And SRI investing is a form of investing these days that's been taken on with some very good and some very niche funds, but the portfolio, even though it can be quite well diversified, I think we would argue that nevertheless there is a degree of compromise here in terms of diversification.
Absolutely. And, that compromise is a fact. It's not an opinion. And for some people, that fact sits well enough with them that they're happy to run their investment funds and their retirement funds like that. But for some people, maybe that is now starting to lose a bit too much diversification. And in fact, Simon, you and I, when we were slowly, and we still are slowly but surely developing this ESG portfolio within Holland Hahn Wills, that lack of diversification is something that we definitely try to avoid, not because we don't have ethical views and charitable views, but it's because diversification as a whole has been academically proven to be one of the only free lunches we get in investment management. And if we can avoid losing too much of that, we are increasing the potential returns of a portfolio, no doubt.
Absolutely. And just to finish off, we should say the category impact investing, which was, I suppose, historically philanthropy. It was people that came along, either wealthy individuals or family offices, people who had a particular cause or desire, and they very much put money into that area. And the main driver is to create the good they're trying to achieve. And if there's a financial return that comes from it, all well and good, but actually that's not the main driver.
Absolutely. And, a simple example that people can think about on this one is just drive down your own town, your own city, your own neighborhood, and you'll see a school named after somebody. And maybe that somebody is from a local family who in the past accumulated, a lot of wealth and decided to make an impact back in their community by setting up and funding a school or scholarships, and there's many other ways of doing that as well.
Absolutely. So I think this slide, the takeaway from this slide is we are very much investing towards a client's financial security. There is a compromise, but actually it's a pretty small compromise.
Indeed. So and it actually makes a lot of people feel that they're aligning their values more with their overall assets, not just with the money they're actually giving away to charity, which is very appealing to a lot of folks out there.
Indeed. Now, this slide, we added in there almost as, I suppose, a reminder of how we invest. And this is true across all our investments. And we're very much believers in, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is that the financial plan is the bedrock of all of this. And then there's the implementation. And then at the very end, we have you could argue the engine, but there is the investment aspect of it. But we are firm believers in huge diversification. We're firm believers in the areas or the expected returns. Efficient frontier and also harnessing the power of market prices. Did you want to talk a little bit more about this, or does that?
Yeah, I think, again, for the benefit of our viewers here, it's trying to cut out the noise is where we started. So when you think about your own investment philosophy, and clients of ours will know what our investment philosophy is, because we're always reinforcing what that is to our clients. And Simon, you and I are always trying to ensure that our investment partners are adhering to our investment philosophy. Well, it's important to have an investment philosophy in mind, even if you are more driven towards having a portfolio that adheres to an ESG standard. So it is important that you can invest in a way that is still based on evidence as to why those particular assets are mixed in a particular way and what the expected returns of that mix is, given the requirement of your financial plan. If you lead with a fund, there is a danger that you might be leading, putting the sort of cart in front of the horse, so to speak, leading with a product and to the detriment of a financial plan. I think that's what this slide here is showing.
Yeah. Now, we were just going to show a couple more slides, which is the practicalities of how do you build an ESG fund. And The sustainability score is a huge part of it. And what this is simply saying is that each and every quoted company in the universe of companies that we invest into is awarded a sustainability score. And as we can see here, 85% of that comes from greenhouse gases, and the rest come from other worthy issues, items. And it's a simple score. And what we can then do is to show how this is applied. So did you want to talk through this one, or shall I keep going, Amyr? Or?
Yeah, so I think what our viewers will see here is, imagine you starting with being able to buy the universe of listed companies in the world. Okay, so what happens when you apply an ESG screen to that universe? How does that ESG screen, that ESG framework, tilt the portfolio at a more micro level and at a more macro level too? So feel free to talk us through that, Simon.
Well, so actually what the scoring does is we start from the very left-hand side, which is those with the lowest sustainability score, and we go right through to those to the very highest sustainability score. And across the whole board, the bottom 5% are simply excluded completely from the portfolio. Then they look at the whole universe via sector. And energy is an interesting example. So what we're not wanting to do is to exclude all energy companies, because none of it, we can't all rush out to buy an electric car today, as a for instance. For those of us who are driving petrol cars, we need petrol for the time being. But accepting the fact that we still will need oil companies for the near future, what we're saying is that we will only hold those that are the most sustainable oil companies. So by a sector, we start off by disinvesting or not investing into the bottom 10%. And then as you go through the scale, then there is a tilt towards those that are most or more sustainable.
Absolutely. And there's an interesting point here for clients of ours, but perhaps viewers who are not clients of ours, to think about. Imagine that these factors, these environmental factors, these sustainability factors, these governance factors, imagine that they become more and more and more of a concern to all of us around the world.
Yeah.
It is natural to start imagining a situation where those companies who are falling into the least sustainable quadrant there, that they might start getting concerned about the fact that their own internal company practices are making them less attractive businesses for institutions and clients to be able to invest in. And that might be enough of a pressure for them over time, for them to start changing some of those practices, some of which will require innovative technology and advances in how we actually do things, and some of it which will require them to be introspective and see how they actually internally govern their company so that they can move up that scale and become attractive businesses for institutions and people to keep investing in. So it's interesting how something like this can, almost like capitalism, can lead companies to want to be better companies for people and for the planet. Because
ultimately it will drive up the cost of capital for them. So it beautifully leads on to, even though I didn't change that slide, it's still got PowerPoint has a mind of its own this morning. It beautifully leads on to the overall market, which is we are tilting towards the most sustainable via sector and also across the board. But what we haven't mentioned briefly is there are also some exclusions. So there are exclusions that include coal, for instance. Fossil fuel, coal is just a no-no. Companies that derive a major part of their, that's just disappeared altogether, so I'm going to close that down because I'm not quite sure what's happening with PowerPoint this morning, but still. The companies that derive the majority of their income from tobacco, also an exclusion. There are other companies, and maybe it's best not to name them, but those that involved in the food chain, where further down the line, and there's child labour issues, and so they're excluded. There's some mining conglomerates who have been responsible for some antisocial practices, I suppose we should say. They're also excluded. So what we didn't want to do today was go massively into the weeds as to how these things work. But it was really just to provide a brief summary to say, we fundamentally are in the wealth preservation business. We firmly believe that clients should have a financial plan, and their plan should be based on solid foundations. However, if they are concerned about the planet and they would like to know more, if they would like their investments to reflect these concerns, we're here, we're available, and we're open to discussion.
Absolutely. And there is a way, and people can rest assured of this, there is a way of including these concerns and investing towards minimizing those concerns and making a better impact for people and for the planet, without losing what we consider to be an evidence-based way of investing for the long term. So feel free to give us a shout. Either Simon or I are more than happy to continue this conversation with anyone that's interested to know more.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you again, Amyr.
Thank you, Simon. Till next time.